Hello everybody, Mr. Akins here, and welcome to What's on the Comic Rack. In this video, I'm going to be participating in Comic Collector Geek's Friday Challenge of your top 10 modern comics. Now, if you start watching these videos, you're going to see everybody else showing modern keys. I need to do a little bit of different take on it so that you don't see the same comics over and over again. My take is going to be this. I'm going to go through and find my top 10 favorite titles. Titles that I've collected over the years since probably the 1980s. And I know during the 1980s and 90s I was religiously reading these titles, not only collecting them. Nowadays I don't necessarily buy comics to read, although I do, but not like I did during the 80s and 90s. A lot of my modern buys are probably for cover art, although I will read some comic books that are newer ones here and there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at an app. I've got an app on my phone that tells me or keeps track of all the comics I've bought. So I was thinking this would be easy. 1 through 8 were pretty easy, but once I got down to number 9 and number 10 on the list, I got some interesting choices there. So let's get to looking at those comics. Number 10. We're going to start off with the Legion of Superheroes number 13, volume 6 from 2011. So why is this number 10 on the list? And why is this an interesting pick for number 10? I have not read this comic. In fact, I have only read 3 Legion of Superheroes comics ever. And those were back in the 1980s. I acquired 2 long boxes of Legion comics from a collection I bought at the beginning of the year. They contain Legion of Superhero comics, Legion comics, Tales of the Legion of Superheroes, and other Legion-related comics. Enough, like I said, to fill 2 long boxes, which I decided to add to my collection instead of trying to sell those on eBay. Now, one day I will start reading this collection and see what the Legion is all about. I know my LCS, there are tons of Legion comics for only $1. Number 9. This was another interesting pick. Avengers West Coast. Obviously I own a lot of West Coast Avengers comics, enough to land at number 9 on the list. This is the last West Coast Avengers comic I bought. By this time the title had changed to Avengers West Coast, and once this title ended it went to another title called Force Works. And many of the members of the West Coast Avengers just simply moved over into that title called Force Works. Now this comic was published in 1993, so it still fits the bill of being a modern comic. I know Martin, the Aussie comic collector, loves final issues, and I think this could easily be found in a dollar bin. So, number 8 on the list. The Uncanny X-Men, or the X-Men. Any X-Men related title. The last X-Men related comic I bought with the intention of reading was this, House of X number 1. Now reading this was so confusing. I had no clue what was going on. It made me feel old and out of touch with the X-Men that I hadn't really read since maybe the early 2000s. I had a huge gap of not reading any X-Men comic from about 2000 to this one, and this was definitely not a good jumping on spot. I think I will stick to the back issues of the X-Men for now. If someone knows of a modern run I need to read, please put it in the comments. I really would like to check out a good X-Men run from about 2000 on to read. So let's head to number 7. Number 7 is Thor. This is the last Thor comic I bought with the intention of reading it. The art was very good. Thor has a golden arm, a golden hammer, and I have no golden clue what's going on with this character. The last Thor comic I remember reading was by J. Michael Straczynski, and I love that run. I see Thor comics on the shelf all the time. I want to buy them, but then I see these back issues, and that's really where I want to spend my money on instead of the newer stuff. Put in the comments below if you know of a modern Thor run after J. Michael Straczynski's run that I probably need to read. Number 6 on the list. Number 6 on the list is Captain America. Now we're getting to comics that I pulled at my LCS until maybe last year. I had all pulls stopped except for Iron Man because I was saving money to buy Iron Man #1. This Coates run is where I stopped reading Captain America. I was still having comics pulled, but I wasn't reading it. One thing I do love about most of these books, though, from this run, is the beautiful alexross covers. That alone is worth the money. Number 5 on the list, the Fantastic Four. Now, I own a lot of Fantastic Four comics, and once I finish volume run of Iron Man, I may try for a volume run of the Fantastic Four. Maybe shoot for 50 and above, make the goal realistic and attainable. I have most of the run from 200 and above, but most of that run is buried at the bottom of a stack of long boxes, but I could find this one, and I think this may have been the last Fantastic Four comic book I bought. This is a great homage cover, and I've actually read this comic. Number 4 on the list, The Incredible Hulk. This was another surprise. The fact that I own more Hulk comics than Fantastic Four comics actually surprised me. I think it may be the fact that I have not logged in a lot of Fantastic Four comics into my app. Once I go through this collection I bought at the beginning of the year, I'll pull out those Fantastic Four long boxes and make sure I catalog all my Fantastic Four. I have read this one. It was an interesting read. Next on the list, number 3, The Amazing Spider-Man. I figured Spider-Man would actually be lower on this list. Not that I don't like Spider-Man, I just didn't realize how many Spider-Man comics I owned. And I own quite a few. This comic was strictly a cover buy. I love these alexross timeless covers. I have all the villains, but not all the heroes. One day I will collect all the hero alexross timeless covers. So now we're to the top 2. Number 2 on the list, The Avengers. Now, The Avengers being number 2 was no surprise. The Avengers is a title I've collected religiously since the 1980s, and have read since then. However, the Jason Aaron run on The Avengers was a little too much for me to handle. Avengers fighting Celestials in giant Shogun warrior battlesuits, Moon Knight gaining cosmic powers and manhandling the Avengers, and the list of other insane stories that Jason Aaron did on that title just were too much for me to handle. I think I stopped with like issue number 50. I couldn't find that one, so I used this one to represent the last Avengers title that I bought. And number 1 on the list, which is no surprise, Iron Man. Iron Man is my favorite character, and I have every issue from volume 2 and most of volume 1. These latest issues I haven't read, but the last run before this one had some awesome alexross art. I've read all those issues and they were interesting, but I haven't read this latest run yet. So there you have it, my top 10 modern comics. Now, if you want to participate in this, the only thing you have to do is put hashtag 2000s, hashtag Friday Comic Challenge, and you too can participate in this challenge. Since I'm going to put this out on Friday, you may check out Alan at Comic Collector Geek, and he'll have a new challenge put out. So until then, we'll see you around the comic rack.